This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. A horrendous train crash makes news globally. Our crime desk this week is littered with the bodies of murdered wives, and anthrax breaks out just over the border. But firstly, our headline story. Now, last week, there was a horrendous train crash in Baton Bong, but I did not cover the story, as sometimes it is better to wait and see how a story develops and see what details emerge with time. And this week, there is not only fresh details, but also a video that shows the crash in its entirety. Now, what I shall do is play the video and not do a voiceover, so you may see how horrifying this incident was. And whilst you're watching, keep in mind you are witnessing what could be a miracle, as quite incredibly, nobody died. Also, please note when watching, the horrendous wailing sound you hear in this video, well, that is the train's siren, desperately trying to warn the bus driver that the train was approaching. A siren the bus driver somehow managed to ignore. In that accident, 46 people were injured, 5 of them critically. One man had both his legs broken. The accident happened at 11 a.m. when the bus attempted to cross the tracks, even though the oncoming train had clearly and loudly sounded its horn. The train hit the middle of the bus and pushed it down the track for some distance. Incredibly though, nobody died. But the amazement does not end there, as shockingly the old traditional happened, and that is the bus driver got out of the wrecked bus and then he fled the scene. Wow. He did not even attempt to aid his injured passengers, and it was left to the police and villagers to help the wounded. The chief of Passat Police said there used to be a barrier at the crossing, but it had broken and has yet to be replaced. The chief himself placed the blame for the accident squarely on the absent driver, saying the incident would not have happened if the driver was driving responsibly. To me, though, watching that footage, I am still absolutely amazed that nobody died. On this week's crime desk, women being slaughtered by their husbands, they are beaten, stabbed, and even stuffed into sewers. And another woman wants $100,000 from the police for jailing her without reason. This is a little bit of a tricky one to do, as I have 3 murder cases for you, all with the same tragic outcome. A wife murdered by an enraged husband. Firstly, we start with this guy, who beat his wife to death as she worked at a stall selling palm juice. The 54-year-old woman was selling her palm juice on the back of a brick kiln in Kampot when her husband approached her and beat her violently about the head, and he ended up killing her. The body was found at 9:30 a.m. and apart from the obvious injuries to her head, The only other detail out of place was her missing wallet, which contained more than 3 million real. It would seem the motive behind the man murdering his wife in broad daylight was to get the money he knew that she had, which comes to about 730 US dollars. And the arrest itself came in just the nick of time, as the husband was taken into custody just as relatives were preparing to bury the victim. Did he think if they buried the body, he could get away with it? Well, he now has plenty of time to contemplate, as he is in police custody awaiting a court date. Next in line, we have this guy, who was even more brutal. He has now been apprehended by the police for the murder of his wife. And what he did beggars belief, for he hacked his wife to death with an axe. On questioning, the man told the police the motive behind this appalling crime was he was jealous of his wife, for he believed that she may have been involved in a relationship with another man, and his rage, it seemed, could not be contained. The murder itself took place at around 10:30 one quiet evening at the victim's house in Kampong Tom province. An argument had broken out, and the man flew into a blind fury. He left the room and went and got not only the axe, but also a large kitchen knife. On returning, he hacked at his wife with the axe, and then he stabbed her repeatedly with the knife. The crime scene itself was quite simply a bloodbath. Police quickly arrested the suspect, who was a 52-year-old farmer. And the third in our trilogy of wife murderers is a duo, and it is these two guys. But the motive for this crime is remarkably similar as our last story. These two were arrested after a woman's body was found stuffed into a sewer, and that lifeless body happened to be the wife of one of the men arrested. After the body was discovered, police made inquiries, and the two men were taken in for interrogation. It was then that they both confessed to the crime and stated that an argument had arisen due to the husband believing his wife was cheating on him. The husband, in his own statement, said he had grabbed his wife, pulled her hair, and hit her in the face repeatedly. He then grabbed her head in the palms of his hands and twisted her head until he broke her neck. Now, that takes not only an awful lot of strength, but also an awful lot of malice. The husband then recruited his friend to help dispose of the dead body. They loaded the body onto a motorbike and drove out to a lonely field and stuffed that lifeless body of his wife into a sewer drain, where they left it, hoping it would not be discovered. But it was not long before word got out and police moved in and made the arrests. And finally, on this week's crime desk, a woman is suing a Phnom Penh traffic police chief for $100,000 after she claimed she was illegally detained. She says she was locked up after being the victim of a road accident in Phnom Penh. A lawyer representing Miss Smythe filed the complaint demanding $100,000 in compensation for her alleged illegal detention. According to the complaint, at about 10:30 p.m., a car drove into her motto. And after the accident, a traffic police officer took her to a police station for questioning. She says that she explained to the officer that she was in fact the victim who was hit from behind, but states that the police officer refused to listen. She then goes on to say that she was detained in a police cell for the next 20 hours for absolutely no reason, and was only released after her brothers requested the intervention of the Phnom Penh Municipal Police Commissioner. The police have stated that they have already received the complaint and have ordered the Phnom Penh Municipal Police to conduct an investigation. Cambodian authorities have announced preventative measures in the border province of Stung Treng, following an outbreak of anthrax in Laos. The neighbouring country had raised an alert after 54 anthrax cases were reported in 2 districts. A Ministry of Health spokesman said, so far there has been no cases within the kingdom, and medical facilities near the border between Cambodia and Laos have been put on high alert. Asia News has reported that high-risk areas in Laos will be zoned off, and certain abattoirs have been banned from slaughtering cattle and buffalo to try and put a stop to the spread of this horrendous disease. The Laos Health Office issued a warning after 54 people contracted anthrax. The outbreak itself began when numerous cattle fell ill and then died, but nobody knew the cause, and unfortunately those dead animals were then butchered and eaten. Lao authorities have now forbidden the killing of any sick animals without knowing the correct cause of their illness. Now, if anthrax is not enough, last week as well, there was also another 14 cases of monkeypox reported within the kingdom. All affected were young men under the age of 40, most of whom live within Phnom Penh itself. After COVID, it would seem that nature is on the attack, what with anthrax, monkeypox, and the exceedingly deadly bird flu virus. So here's some advice. If you get ill, check your symptoms, and if necessary, do seek medical advice. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
What you see on the screen is something very traditional, and you'll know it well. It is a weather chart, but I have discovered there's another way of predicting the weather, and that is to look at your hamster. So here on the screen is my hamster, who I live with, called Wilbert, and I've learned when it gets above about 35, 36 degrees, you can see what he's doing. He's living outside his house because it's too damn hot. Now let's go to the specifics. And what we find is the temperature will rise to 39 degrees. Oh, we're so close to that big 40. It's going to be cloudy. There is potentially rain. Your humidity is at 50%.
This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly roundup.